I'm going to briefly cover what we were unable to get to in the previous lecture. We had discussed the three functions of nouns: the nominative, which normally acts as the subject. We discussed the genitive, which normally shows either possession or otherwise some sort of aspect, some material of the noun, which is a noun modifying another noun, or the accusative, which is the direct object most commonly. And we looked at most commonly the nominative. We can see follows the main verb. Most commonly, the accusative noun will follow the direct object marker, that aleph tav marker. But we didn't discuss how to recognize the genitive. The genitive nouns are going to be those nouns that are closely conjoined with another noun, either in the accusative or in the nominative, and in a form that we call the construct chain. And so here you see the construct chain Devari Elohim, which would be translated words of God. At that point, you notice that God would be that modifying noun there. It could be God's words. That would show the possession that these are God's words, or that they are words of a divine nature, words of God, inspired words. So that's the structure we call a construct chain. It's just any two nouns that are conjoined together as they are here. The final noun is considered termed the absolute noun. The noun before that is considered the construct, and being in the construct, as they say, oftentimes causes some letters to change a little bit. If Devar would be by itself, it would actually be Devarim. If you remember, the plural ending would end with an M or mem, and so you can see that's changed a little bit there. You don't have to know that, but these are things that Logos will identify for you, whether or not a noun is in the absolute or is it in the construct state. These construct chains can actually be very long. Here we have a construct chain of 5 words. All of the rest of the princes of the the king of Babylon, and we see that at that point, Babel at the very end would be the word that's actually the absolute noun in that case. All the words preceding that would be considered in the construct because they are all modifying one another in a big long chain there. We can also have 2 absolute nouns, just as we can have multiple construct nouns. We can have multiple absolute nouns. This passage from Genesis 28, the mother of Jacob and Esau, or Jacob and Esau's mother. M being the mother, Jacob va Esau. And so there you can see that the 2 absolute nouns are joined by the vav conjunction, but they are still both modifying M, or mother, in the construct. We discussed how some nouns are definite and some are indefinite. And one thing to remember is all proper nouns are definite. And so when we look at the translation for this long construct chain, every noun in the construct with this definite proper noun, Babel, is also definite. It carries that definiteness over through the construct chain. And so it's not all of the rest of a prince of a king of Babylon, all of the rest of the princes of the king. So we can see that that definiteness, goes all the way down that chain. So anytime a word is in construct with an absolute noun that is definite, the construct noun will also be definite as well. We can see this previously with this Genesis 28 passage. It's not a mother of Jacob and Esau, it's the mother of Jacob and Esau. It wouldn't make any sense. This is something that's both grammatically dictated, but it's also logically dictated in most cases. Jacob and Esau didn't have multiple mothers. They just had the mother of Jacob and Esau. We also need to look at adjectives. Adjectives function in Hebrew very much as they do in English. They simply modify nouns. A little bit different though, and they're not that common. Uh, Adjectives are not used as frequent in Hebrew as they are in English. English is very adjective heavy. Hebrew not so much. In most cases, if they are attributive, that is, if they're just modifying a noun, like most adjectives do, they typically follow the noun they're modifying. And so you can see there in Genesis 21:8, a great feast. Gadol is the word meaning great, and it's following the noun. Likewise from Proverbs 14, a good man. Ish tov. Ish is man, tov is good. And so that is how the attributive adjective works. There is a way this comes into play with definiteness if a noun and its adjective match in definiteness. That's how you can tell it's attributive. Uh, any noun is going to match with the adjective that describes it in number and gender. And so if you've got a masculine singular adjective, it's going to be modifying a masculine singular noun. It's not going to be modifying a feminine plural noun. It's not going to be modifying a masculine plural noun. It will be matching in number and gender. But it doesn't have to match in definiteness. If it does match in definiteness, that's what we call an attributive adjective. A good man. Just it's attributing something to that man. If it does not match indefiniteness, such as we have in the second example, ha-ish tov, the man, it makes it predicative. The man is good. We actually have to supply that to be verb, is, to make this a complete sentence. And it is a complete sentence in Hebrew. Ish tov, the man is good. You're making a qualitative assessment of this man that you're talking about, and you're doing it in a perfectly legitimate grammatical Hebrew expression there. But because it does not match in definiteness, it actually becomes predicative when we translate it. Adjectives are sometimes used substantively, which that is, they're used as nouns. For instance, tov, if it just stands by itself, simply means a good one, a good something. Doesn't really reference anything. If there's no noun nearby for it to modify, that's how you're going to translate it. It comes into play occasionally, but I don't have any examples here because I wasn't able to find any good examples, so I wouldn't worry about it too much for right now. Just know, because it will come into play later on, that adjectives can be used attributively, predicatively, and substantively. Ha'ish tov was a good example of what we call a verbless clause. A noun combined, such as that, we have to, with that adjective there, we have to supply that to be verb, which is actually a fairly common construction in Hebrew. You can see a couple couple more examples here. This 2 Samuel 12 is ata ha'ish. It's actually not an adjective there in front of ha'ish. That's actually a pronoun. It means you. That's the second masculine singular pronoun. So it's essentially you, the man, in its most wooden translation there. But if we supply that to be verb, you are the man. And if you recall the context of 2 Samuel 12, this is Nathan confronting David with his sin with Bathsheba. Tells him the story about the unjust man and stealing the poorer man's only sheep, and David responds as is appropriate, saying this man is unjust. This man ought to be brought to justice. And Nathan turns around and says, "You are the man," in this very pointed, very brief sentence. Ata ha'ish. He sums up God's judgment against David, and it's quite effective. as we see in David's repentance there. But again, just grammatically there is no actual verb there. This is a verbless clause. Amos 7 is this other example, lo nabi anoki, which literally translated, lo is a negative particle, so no or not. Nabi is prophet, and anoki is the first common singular pronoun, so I. Literally, no prophet I, or not prophet I. Well, we've got to supply a verb in this sentence for us to actually understand it in the English, and so it can be done one of two ways. It could be I am not a prophet, or I was not a prophet. And if you recall the context of Amos 7, this is Amos confronting, or really being confronted by the high priest of the temple in the northern kingdom at Bethel, who's telling Amos, quit your prophesying here. We don't want to hear your words. Go back down to the south where they'll actually pay you for what you're doing. And Amos's response is, Lo nabi anoki. Well, there's actually, like as I said, it could be I am not a prophet or I was not a prophet. And you see some difference in translation there. The ESV actually goes with I was not a prophet, kind of indicating that he wasn't a prophet. He was out in Tekoa, herding sheep and dressing fig trees and the like. But God called him up to be a prophet, and so now he is one. I was not a prophet, implying that, well, now I am a prophet. The NASB actually goes with I am not a prophet. Um, Interesting interpretive decision there. There's a lot of discussion about this passage and about what it actually implies about the way Amos views his office, and maybe he's doesn't view himself as a formal paid prophet, of which there were in the biblical times, men that you could actually go to and give money to receive a prophecy from God, but saying that I'm not a paid prophet, I am actually here on a mission from God, delivering the message that needs to be delivered. Because Amos is obviously a prophet, right after this statement, he issues another prophecy against Amaziah the high priest and his family. That is the verbless clause, very interesting feature in Hebrew grammar and quite common.